Well, thank you for having me. I'm at the Sangha. I'm really honored to be a part of it here. And as I'm sitting on Treaty 7 territory, Mohinkis territory of Calgary, Alberta, the Piikani, the Tsuut'ina Nation, the Blackfoot Confederacy, and the Métis Nations, and all the amazing, beautiful souls in the mountains that we have with us, and Mother Nature. I just wanted to extend my thanks for having me here at the Sangha. To Salim and Francisco, Linda, Tara, Rashidia, Marina, and Janine, thank you all for coming and being present. I wanted to extend my thanks to an elder from the Tsuut'ina Nation, Marina Crane. She has been involved in working with troubled families and youth in the north of Canada for so many years, looking to facilitate families and children who've ended up in bad places in their lives. And she's done amazing healing work and continues to extend herself as a very respected elder within the Tsuut'ina Nation. And it was my wish to have her here because as this is Sangha and it takes so many different modalities of cultures and spiritualities, I thought of this influence of having an elder from the First Nations of the North American territories that we're on to start off with a prayer. So Marina, I'd like to give the show to you right now, and if you could, you're welcome to say hello, everyone. If you'd like to say hello and greet Marina.
Hey, Marina. Thank you for being here.
You're welcome.
Yeah. Is that a drum? You got a drum, Marina?
No, it's smudge bowl.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
An eagle feather.
Beautiful.
That came from Victoria Island this past summer.
Nice. It's so beautiful up there.
And then the smudge is a mixture of 4, 2 female and 2 male. And so the male is sweetgrass,
yeah,
and tobacco. And the female is the sage and cedar. I don't know if I can show you.
This is fantastic.
Okay, so there's male and female in the smudge. And we've had so many deaths now with, we only had 1 death with COVID, but the stress of isolation, we've lost a lot of young people, like in their 40s, some in their 30s.
Yeah.
And just the stress of people being by themselves and learning to deal with their anxiety. I think before the pandemic, whatever mental health issues they were having, it just intensified more, because at least socializing, you could howl at the moon. Whereas when you're isolated, nobody can hear you. So anyway, the sage, usually when we have funerals, well, there are 2 things. The sage, which is the female, is like releasing the soul. The sweetgrass is inviting the soul. And the cedar, the same, like the female is like, okay, you're letting the spirits know it's okay to leave. Where the male is more of like, okay, you can come in and be involved with us. So most smudges with North American smudges will comprise of those 4 sages. I mean, 4 ingredients, 4 medicines to smudge. But individual, like the cedar, the sage, the sweetgrass, and tobacco, those are individual smudges as well. And they have their significance when it comes to ceremony. So what I'm going to do is I'll offer a prayer, and then I'd like you to visualize as I'm offering the prayer, because it's in ceremony, these prayer offerings are usually sung, or they're usually said in the indigenous language. So I'm just basically doing this in English without song or anything, but yet it's the visualization of the intent that is going to be set within the prayer that hopefully, and I think is universal. So I'll just do the smudge now, and then so when I light the smudge, I'd like you to all close your eyes and then just listen to my voice as I offer the prayer. Okay. Kashida, Creator, I call on you to bring the grandfathers and grandmothers into this circle that has been created. I call on you, grandfather, grandmothers, permission from grandfather rock, permission from Creator. Come forward, come from the west, come from the north, come from the east, and come from the south. Come from grandfather sky, and come from deep within our hearts, and come from grandmother earth. We ask you, Creator, to send the grandfathers and grandmothers to us. Encircle us in a globe, a reflective globe of love and light, that all who gaze upon us inside this reflective globe only see a reflection of themselves. Deflect all negative energy and entities from us. I ask you to encircle us, connect us all in this sphere of love and light, reflecting all negativity and negative entities away from us. From within this sphere, as we're here, we ask you, Creator, come send the grandfathers and grandmothers to absorb and destroy all negative energy from this life, from past lives, from past realms of existence, and for future lives. We ask the Creator, guide us forward in beauty, balance, peace, harmony, reconciliation, and opulence. Help us by giving us and guiding us as we seek the forces of truth, the forces of love, and the forces of soul. We ask thee, grandfather, grandmother, with Creator's help, we ask you to connect to all those who have gone before us and taken their journey home to you. We ask you, grandfathers and grandmothers, and to send messages and embrace all those that we love and those who love us. Let them know that we're grateful for them being here and celebrating life and love with us. We ask you to be with us this day. Watch over us and watch over the people we love and those that love us. And we ask the Creator to guide us this day. Let our hearts be open, our minds be free. We ask the Creator for all these blessings, that we may gather our courage and strength to move forward in these difficult times. Watch over all those who are grieving, all those who have lost loved ones. We ask you to be with us this day, that we may walk forward as we've requested this gift in beauty, balance, peace, harmony, and reconciliation. Watch over us, Creator. We do these things in a good way, that we're grateful for this celebration of life and love that we are gathered here today, connecting with all these people from all over. We ask thee, for Creator, for these things. We say these, wo pidami dakyapi, wo pidami dakyapi. Thank you, grandfather. Thank you, grandfathers and grandmothers. Wo pidami dakyapi owasin. We're all related. Wo pida. Okay, so I'm done. And thank you for asking me to do this. We've had such a great loss. Our chief and council have given the entire community two weeks of mourning, because it's just been too much loss in our community. So I don't know if you have any questions for me, but anyway, thank you.
Thank you so much, Marina. Did anyone want to share any questions, feedback?
Yeah, just what you said really resonates a lot with me, Marina. Really grateful that you're here, and thank you so much, Sachin, for being so thoughtful to ask Marina to start and to do the offering today. You know, just talking to a lot of friends in Peru, and most of the calamities there have been from isolation. Like you were saying, Marina, it hasn't been like the COVID, it's been the result of the isolation from it, that has created people taking their life, you know, from depression and things. So yeah, thank you so much. Thank you so much. I look forward to meeting you in person one day. I love where you're from.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Marina. You gave us such a nice energy, and also like to think about a bit deeper, and also to get connected with our ancestors. And I have just one question. What kind of language was it you used at the end? Was it Quechuan, and what does it mean?
Oh, that is Dakota Sioux.
Ah.
Okay, and Midakiapi, that means like Midakiapi Owasin. It means we're all related.
Okay, I understand.
Midakiapi is a relative, and Owasin is like we're all related. So rather than the Christian format of saying amen, it's instead of saying that, it's like Midakiapi Owasin. It finishes the prayer.
Okay, nice.
Yeah, so that way everybody knows they're all related. They're all connected.
Thank you. It was very nice.
You're welcome.
Beautiful.
No, a lot of this that I do hasn't been just I think it's been guided. Like my parents traveled to South America and India when I was 8 and 10. And a lot of the cultures that they connected with all believed in spirituality. So for me on my journey, how I pray and how I do things, I believe has all been guided. Because the more research I do, the more I realize like the cultures within the world are so similar in how we visualize protecting ourselves. So this prayer is a prayer of protection. And so once you're protected, then you start healing. And so if you have no visualization of how negative energy or entities are stored inside of us from either this generation or past generations, we're asking Creator to absorb them and destroy them, because a lot of times we're unaware that we're practicing these things, and during a time now that I find like a lot of young people in their 40s, 30s, especially Indigenous, who are practicing or trying to learn their the spirituality of whatever First Nations they've adopted themselves into, or that they find themselves into, is very fragmented and shattered. So without having support, like positive support just from another human being, it's like creator isn't able to influence. So the more open and at peace we are in knowing that our grandfathers and grandmothers had it worse, and so whatever we're feeling, they're able to erase it and destroy it a lot better than we can in this life. So in just being inspired to create or rewrite or reinvent myself has been guided in how I pray. So I use this prayer as a prayer of protection, because when everything was taken away, our culture, our language, our identity, there were still, Sachin and I have talked about this, where there are still areas, there are still sacred objects that colonizers didn't touch. And I truly believe that when we pray, and we hold an object that is sacred, as the generations continue to pray, that object, like we'll say the eagle feather, as I'm praying, it's collecting all the smoke from the prayer. So I just use that the eagle feather as the object. So as long as I have this eagle feather and whatever life I've put into it through prayer, that can't be destroyed. And so there are sacred objects within the North American Indigenous culture that colonizers haven't touched since the beginning of time. And because of that, we'll call it sacredness. I don't know if you all heard of Standing Rock, when they had this big, like the protest for water, but they brought in seven sacred objects, and they created a society called the Horn. And from the objects that came, and they lit a fire to represent the horn. As long as that fire was going, the forces, that the blessings or the forces or the protection that was required to maintain that strength within 10,000 people who gathered at the camp would be there. And so people saw all these people from all over the world coming to South Dakota, to help the water protectors. And it's because there are sacred objects that these individuals brought into the camp. And like I said, nobody touches them, just the owners of the people who were given that, like Orville Looking Horse. He's the 19th generation to hold the pipe for White Buffalo Calf Woman. So he was instrumental in using the pipe to, nobody's touched that pipe. Most pipes that you see in North America were they were taken by museums, and so they opened them up and touched them. So when somebody touched them, it took away all that life. They basically killed it because they touched it, because their energy, there was no, the love in that object was destroyed. So reconnecting and trying to get people to trust each other, or to understand pleasure. This year, when I've talked to a lot of Indigenous women, because there's thousands of murdered and missing Indigenous women in Canada and the United States, and I think in South America as well, that a lot of, when it comes to human sexuality, it's very hard for women who've been traumatized to trust somebody. And so a lot of words in any language that deal with human sexuality triggers trauma. And unless you have a trained professional to help people go through, then it's not it's not safe. So that's why when I do the smudge and I ask for protective healing light, it's just to help, you know, like, I don't know you all, but whatever trauma you've gone through in your life, that's a protection prayer so that you can walk forward. And it's up to you to visualize how you want to walk forward. So mine is like in beauty, balance, peace, harmony, and especially reconciliation, because the colonizers have hurt us so much, and they continue to hurt us. And even though they say, you know, reconciliation because of the damage of genocide through Indian residential school, the federal government still doesn't, even though they say it, they don't mean it. So a lot of us who are traumatized believe the government, and those that understand trauma don't believe the government. So I guess it's like in the United States, a lot of people believed in their president, and so there's like a virus or some sort of negative energy and entity that just sort of like slime holds on to it. And until somebody actually becomes awake, it's the fear of like knowing that when you're meditating, at some point there's a fear that comes in, and it's the ability to be centered in that moment that will help you move forward. But it's a very uncomfortable thing, and it's based on fear. And as soon as it's stimulated, like the people just shut down. So yes, in a long run, that's the nature of the prayer, especially when I'm around people. Most of this that I'm doing is just a brief tip of the iceberg when someone passes in our community. So we had one of our band counselors, he's in his early 50s, last week died from a massive heart attack. He was driving and got into an accident, and his body's been out in our community for 2 days now. And tomorrow they'll have the funeral for him, and it'll be in our community, a community center. Social distancing will take place. They'll have the funeral on like a big screen in a parking lot. They'll also have it by Zoom. But why I'm mentioning this is like during the 2 days that he's home in his house, all the prayers and all the smudge, all the spiritual people from within the community will go to the house and help the family grieve. So when I say I do this prayer, it's just the tip of the iceberg, because it takes a whole community. It takes a whole community for the community for even just one individual to move forward. So it's not, even though it's a prayer, and you try to do it on a daily basis, when you actually see it in practice within a whole community, you can feel it. Like, it's just, I'm very blessed that I'm around people I've known since I was a child. I lived in the United States for 10 years, and so I came back to my home community, and I have my whole community is like my family. I live by myself. I've never been in a relationship. I don't have children, and the sacrifice in living this life has allowed me to live so long. You have to understand that I've buried a lot of my friends that I've grown up with who are female. So this, even though you say murdered and missing Indigenous women, unless you actually live in the community and you've helped bury these women, it doesn't mean anything unless you've actually been there and you still live it, because it's not, you have to protect yourself even from your own family. So it's not let me put it this way. Creator gives us things and has people come to us so that we can socialize and and move forward. We're very social animals, so that we have to have that connection. But at the same time, too, we also have to protect ourselves. This whole year being in isolation and having people invite me to do talks or just go to meetings, and I choose to be around certain people. So when someone comes into my home or I'm around them, I expect them, the expectation of seeing how people talk to me or talk at me. So this isolation for me has helped me in sensing when somebody is talking at me, and it's not comfortable. A lot of universities and social sciences are teaching young Indigenous people and just young people in itself that when you approach an elder, when they talk, they're teaching you the truth, like their experience, their life experience. So you're talking to them as if they're your teacher. And that's the analogy I'd say for being talked to or being talked at. And a lot of young people who, and I'm part of that. Like I grew up and I didn't understand it until I became an elder, that it's important to actually listen. In my community growing up, it wasn't unusual for Indigenous women to not be sexually active for 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60 years. You know, I grew up with elder women who'd been who'd never had a husband for decades, and I think it's all over the world too. I think people when I talk to non-Indigenous women too, it's not uncommon for women to take on this role so that they're protecting themselves as well, because and we can do it. We can do it. I think Creator has blessed us that way. But I'm grateful for Sachin and for all of you. I was a bit nervous coming because I know when it comes to spirituality, I've met quite a few holy people. And when I'm around people like that, I know they can see that, like, how do I put it? There's no shield. It's just open. And so, you know, for me, every time I'm in that presence, I have to acknowledge that. Like it's when you're in that presence, it's it's a very humbling experience. So I just wanted to thank you for that, because I sense that that's who I'd be talking to today.
Thank you for all your words. It's a lot to think about and very interesting. And thank you very much for being here and sharing your story with us.
You're welcome. Well, it's very difficult for people outside of Canada or even the United States to understand like what it's like to be an Indigenous person in Canada.
I guess it's pretty tough, isn't it? Because
Well, that's why I live in my community. If I lived outside in the city of Calgary, it would eat me up. And I find a lot of young people who become successful, the colonizers set them up to fail, and a lot of the misunderstanding of what's happening with youth is lost on a lot of people. So even though we in our communities we try to help, it's very limited, but yet at the same time, how do I put it? In the United States, a person will not work for a white person because they would think that the white person is their overseer or their owner. So within my community, even though we live by a city of a million, over a million people, a lot of our community don't go into the city to work because it would be working for the slave owner. That's the analogy I have because of the way it's structured in Canada, colonial thinking.
Yeah. Wow. Wow. I'm impressed that you are still living how you're doing it, because the most of the people in our times, they got scared, and then even though they feel like, okay, I'm an indigenous person and that's my way, our system is making all of them afraid, and so they choose to go maybe to the city and work for somebody for whom they don't want to work for. But yes, it's like because they got this pressure from all the system, and then they got confused. So it's very, very nice that you are constantly going your way. It's very nice, and it's a very wonderful inspiration as well. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah, that's beautifully said. Thank you for sharing also, Rashida. And this topic has been coming up a lot recently in conversations with me as well, specifically around finding the balance of staying true to yourself and what you feel inside, and figuring out how to navigate inside of a system where we understand, and it's quite clear that the cards are intentionally stacked against the majority of the people. And so how to navigate sort of that thin line, and how to honor yourself, perhaps your culture, if the culture makes sense to you, how to release aspects of a culture that may be toxic if you're coming from that kind of environment, and how to do all of this inside of structures that are very counterintuitive, even especially living in the city, I would say, in urban environments that we know are unhealthy, where people are not growing their food, for example. All of these conversations are coming up. So I appreciate you bringing that forward from your perspective, and also holding firm on that, on that resilience. And yeah.
Yeah, because in Calgary, like I when I was 4 and 5 years old, we scared rabbits. Like it'd be cold. My father and my older brother, we'd go down our the trap line, snare line. It wasn't like trapping big animals, but there was no social assistance, no child welfare. Like the government didn't come into the community. And it wasn't until 68 years ago that they started putting fences around our community. When I was 30, I worked in northern Alberta near the oil sands. And I had an opportunity to meet a woman who had lived in the wilderness with her family. And the first time she saw a white person was when she was 18. So in the northern communities of Alberta, the traditional way of thinking, I've had 2 sister-in-laws who lived and grew up in northern Alberta, and even Métis. They have Métis settlements in northern Alberta too. So the whole idea of being connected to the land and what it means. So a person here who could have 10% Indigenous blood can apply for a Métis status card. However, just because you can see it in the DNA, you have to show legal records of being connected to the land and community before they will process that card. So in Canada, we have a lot of non-Indigenous people who are passing themselves off as Indigenous, culturally appropriating our way of thinking and living. And I know Sachin and I have had discussions about that as well, especially when it comes to, taking a practice that is not yours, and how do you show respect for the culture that you're taking that practice from. So this past summer, I had a non-Indigenous guy offer me tobacco to come into a sweat. I took the tobacco, assuming that there was an indigenous man who was going to do the sweat. Then when I got there, or when I got connected with him, it was him who was going to do the sweat. So my strategy is that if any non-indigenous person offers me tobacco to participate in ceremony, I will have to say to them, because they're non-indigenous, that they're taking up space. That space could be used for an indigenous young person who needs the spiritual help and healing, rather than a non-indigenous person doing it. And I think the more assertive as an indigenous person is, especially, I think in the United States, people take advantage of that. Whereas in Canada, because we're 10% of the population, we can assert the fact that, no, you cannot practice this. And we're more aware of when something happens that somebody's passed themselves off as indigenous, it makes national news. So I don't mean to get carried away in the conversation, but
well, we're very much, I mean, this Sangha is very much a circle. We invite things as they arise oftentimes, and we have to be able to be that flexible in general. So, and certainly when an elder comes into the circle, we have a Circle of Elders series that we've been facilitating, and we always need to be able to listen to our elders. So to us, that's first and foremost. So there's no taking away. Very much, I think everyone's really with you. You know.
Okay.
Really good. Yeah.
Because in my culture, especially young people, there are some young people who practice spirituality, but they practice it in a bad way. And then there are some elders who have kept the practice going for, each lifetime. And so I'm just fortunate that I've been in the presence of both. And so when we talk about people who choose to live in their communities and not venture out, I believe that there's a good reason for that, so that they can keep those sacred objects sacred, so that nobody touches them. And in some way too, even for me as an elder, the fact that people take care of me or help me or socialize with me is a lot healthier than if I were like I have that protection. I have that those already set up. But I truly believe that Creator has done this for me, and like just the friendships that I've had, friendships from 30 years ago, or even a connection to another human being on the earth. Like you can just feel the energy that that person's still alive. So you have to pay respects to that feeling or that energy, because it's important, because I truly believe Creator has this plan. I don't think that civilization, what we think of it right now, is like the top of the pyramid. I think civilization at some point was the pyramid, and whatever direction we're going to take, I truly believe our spirit, our the truth, like I said, the forces of truth, the forces of love, and the forces of soul, I truly believe those are eternal. And whatever we do in this wakened moment, and however we choose to walk forward, we have to decide who we're going to see in our next life, or if we're going to choose to if we're going to choose to do these things, because it's within our power or within our essence to be consciously aware of that, and how it influenced us throughout our entire life. I just don't think I truly believe, and I say I just don't think when I was younger, I didn't understand the word patience. So a lot of things that have come to me from Creator have taken decades. And I, when I see that and I understand that, and I think of the majority of people who I helped bury didn't get that opportunity for Creator to give them these blessings. So I do know it takes patience, and it takes the individual who, however you choose inside deep within your heart to live, and whatever you're attracted to, whatever energy you're trying to create and maintain, that attraction only opens up bigger opportunities and incentives and motivation. Because I just don't think, like for example, when my mother went to both my parents went to residential school. Both were sexually abused. um, when my mother said before they got the word they were going to South America, she said, I was daydreaming, and she says, I just felt this energy just moving. She said, I saw this whirlwind just in front of me, just moving. She says, it kind of made me feel faint. She said, the very next day I got word we're going to go to South America. Then when I was 10 years old, again, she was daydreaming, and she felt the same thing, this same energy. She says that the very next day she was invited to India. They were invited to India. So those things, my mother, she was afraid to practice her spirituality because of being in residential school and the whole religiosity of thou shalt not. So most of the time when it came to spiritual practice, a lot of things that she had, blessings that she had, I think she could have reached out to more people in the community, but I'm fortunate that she just reached out within her family. So no, I do believe that whatever trauma people do live in childhood, that it does, like Creator doesn't forget them or doesn't forget us. So I'll just leave it at that. I don't mean to go on like.
Hopefully not. We want to circle back in with you 100%. Thank you so much, Sachin, for for inviting Marina in, for sharing.
Yeah, I just want to say the beautiful thing I love about Marina is Marina will, some people come with a script when they come to talk about something. Here I am, and this is 1, 2, 3. But Marina, she speaks from her spirit and her soul and her heart. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And it's like, I think it's amazing to be that vulnerable and just to, one thing I want to say is, does anybody want to say anything? I think someone had mentioned that they want to say, does anybody have any comments or wanted to have any questions? Mm-hmm. Okay, I think we're good. Okay, well, if anybody does at any point, please just jump in. Well, wow, yeah, I'm a little blown away. I was like, that was just beautiful. And I think there's something amazing that Marina mentioned around like the strengths and around like physical strength, moral strength, spiritual strength, and just the absolute importance of cultivating one's spiritual self in a material world. Now the two must be in this North American, Western European world. Just we have a really beautiful balance of both. And I know there's a lot of people here who are of different cultures, who have probably experienced certain things growing up, be racism, negligence. But I think end of the day, we're here right now. And when we look at really like what memory we've had, and we also look at how we can have self-reliance on ourselves, this ability to be independent. Our self-esteem is there where we can believe in ourselves, and we have that self-confidence, and not have a fear of change, but cultivate ourselves moving forward with a spiritual presence, just as living in an Ayurvedic approach, or from a yoga perspective of a sattvic approach to living. So I think everybody here likes yoga. I gotta get some nods or no's. You can say no if you don't like it, or yes. Okay, right. Cool. So, the question I put out there is like, hey, why does everybody like yoga so much? Why does everybody like meditation so much? Why is it so good for you? What is it about it? Like, why? And that takes me to the sister science of what yoga is, which is Ayurveda. So Ayurveda is a medical branch system of healthcare from India, which is over 5,000 years old. And as Elder Marina had spoken about, indigenous teachings of being like a standing rock with the fire and being within, maintaining the strength. I think one of the biggest foundations of a meditation and yogic practice is Hame apane maneko hamesha santo likanakanahe isi me hime hamara asehma hihiramanayahe. He. This is basically saying in a yogic practice that may we always work at maintaining a balanced state of mind all the time, because it's through this that our furthest development is possible. And so just as being on this Sangha, a community online meeting, we're here for a purpose and we have a reason. We're trying to do well in our life. So I think of the Shushrutas. Shushrutas in yoga are conducting your life well, which is dharma, artha, kama, moksha. Dharma is following your duty towards your children, your duty towards your work, your duty towards Francisco keeping the fire going so he doesn't get cold in the house and everything's good. For us, doing the first thing, taking care of ourselves before anyone, because then we can help others around us. Artha, monetary gain, so we can keep the lights on, put bread on the table. Kama, people think of Kama Sutra, the pleasures, but I'm talking about Kama like the pleasures of dance, music, poetry, anything that gives you joy in life, wearing beautiful clothes. And then moksha, this like liberation of cultivating a presence within yourself where you feel that you're connected to all on a spiritual length, like liberation. And with that, it really reminds me of when Marina brought up indigenous people in Canada have a hard time, but I think of people who are Black, people who are South American, women, children, how there is a suppression, and how through taking and cultivating ourselves and our mind and knowing how to keep our mind balanced in a reckless world, we will keep that balance, and that perpetuates to others. So I'd like to share some things on Ayurveda with you. I think we've been going for about an hour. Thank you so much for coming. I'm an Ayurvedic practitioner in Calgary. Ayurveda is it's basically a systematical medical branch system like traditional Chinese medicine. It goes into branches of herbology, aromatherapy, yoga, meditation, geriatrics. It's a full balanced system to keep someone balanced. And I think that's even more why it's being used. So when I think of right now, like there's a lot of anxiety and stress. And one thing I think Marina said before we begin this was there's a lot of suicides, deaths. People are finding themselves very imbalanced because I think money's a big one. Relationships are a big one. They have to spend time with their loved ones, which they never had to do. There's this whole perpetuation. And one of the main practices in Ayurveda or yoga is to go within oneself. And Anyat Bhavna is like a reflection technique of this, which is being aware of yourself, training your memory, where spending time to purify your chitta, which is your mind, And instead of doing that with looking outwardly for all the help, if we can go within and have courage and strength, it's possible. And that's why a big part of the practice, which makes Ayurveda so beautiful, is going within. So bringing balance with Ayurveda in a few sentences with winters, we're in a transition here in the Northern Hemisphere versus the Southern Hemisphere, like for Salim, who's in Africa, to friends of ours who are in Oregon, North America, is we live within the elements, and we're in elements right now in North America, which are drier, cold, it's windy, your joints crack, your digestion might be off a little bit more, you might go towards more fattier protein foods, warmer, soupy and nourishing foods. Unlike Salim here, who's eating a beautiful green salad, which is raw. So if you went outside in the cold depths of weather and you had a raw salad, the fire is going to become eliminated. And if your fire gets eliminated in a colder climate, that's depleting your immunity, because you're depleting your what? Your digestive fire. So when Marina spoke about this fire at Standing Rock, where they were keeping this fire going, and as long as that fire was there, it was maintaining strength within. As an Ayurvedic practitioner, if you're trying to develop more internal, physical, mental health internally, I suggest in the winter season, keep your digestive fire high, stoke your fire. Don't overheat it, but keep that, because if your digestive fire loosens, your immunity can drop, you're more susceptible to diseases, you have a backup of digestion, constipation, and for that, there's really beautiful elements, again, that you can add to it, which could be spices, foods, herbs. But the most important one is having control of your mind. And through having control of your mind, I'm referring to regulation, mindfulness, meditation. And that can look however it looks for you. Does anybody here meditate? Raise your hand. Cool, cool. So a meditation practice is null if it's not self-experienced. So I think the most important about one is to practice on a continual basis. It's not like you go to it when you need to get focused for a project or make money. It's like brushing your teeth in the morning and making that practice, if it's even for 5 minutes. My own personal experience, I had a near-death life experience like 2 years ago. I got hit by a semi-oil taker on the road, was thrown into oncoming traffic in my Jeep. It was crazy. Hit by 2 other vehicles. I walked away from it, but I'd signed up for a Vipassana meditation, and I just want to say, I don't want to go into details, but I just found that through going within yourself and not going outwardly to everything, true healing occurs, because in Ayurveda, we look at the human being's vessel, which is built and made from love, from the dhatus, which are the building blocks of the channels of the body of blood, bone, marrow, semen, eggs, fat, tissue, all these cells and plasmas. Because when our parents come together and we're created through plasma, through sperm and ovum, we grow, and we grow into a physical manifestation. But aside from the physical manifestation of the human being with blood, bones, and all this, in yoga, we call it Purusha. And Purusha is a consistency of energy which is micro and macrocosmic, like the universe, the stars, just as Elder Marina spoke of the elements that we're connected to. So we're all God's children, but God itself, the word, is that we're all intertwined into the universe, into space, into the insects, into the air we're breathing right now, into food we're eating. And we're continually connected. So my wish is that everyone understands that you're your true healer, and no one else will give that to you except for yourself. And during this time where we can be at home more, it's a really beautiful time. If you're having troubles with addictions, just your mental mind, stress, trauma, I encourage you to look for counseling, for There's trauma hotlines as well. You can offer this to people around you, and it's really helpful. I've even had to do it myself, being a business owner at times. But with that in mind, I find that Ayurveda, in a sense, is if we're transitioning from New Year's to winter, and we really have to look at our seasons. So if we're in a winter season, even if you're in Africa, which is hot, or you're in Oregon or Canada, it's really the one thing that I want to suggest is making sure that you're eating on time, you're resting well, you have some form of personal relaxation technique, Anyat Bhavna, self-reflection, clearing your mind from everything that happened in the day. So that's why we find it's really like a beautiful thing to do before you go to bed, for example, like keep your spine straight, your neck straight, think and go back to your day from when you woke up till you're sleeping, what happened and what, don't play it like a movie in your head, but just watch it and watch everything unfold. So that way your conditioned memory mind, which tends to take on memory and that shows up in your dreams, it dissipates and it has this awareness of itself to let go. So one big thing in Ayurveda is letting go and allowing yourself to just be at equanimity. And with that in mind, spices, which are good to cook with, in my opinion, especially during this kind of seasonal approach in time, are what we can all get. Cumin seeds, turmeric, black mustard seeds. If you're liking fresh foods, garlic, onions. Now, garlic and onions will be say, hey, but those are like stimulating and aggravating during a meditation practice. But if you look at the qualities, there's something that are called gunas, which are forceful energies. If you're living in a cold environment, you want stimulating activities. You want stimulating foods to kill down on bacteria. We also have to look at this from a respiratory side. So with COVID, COVID or any bacteria enters through your mouth, your nose, your eyes, your ears, your orifices. So your respiratory system gets it first. So like in a yogic practice, everybody put your hands up in the air. Here, we'll do this quickly as an exercise. Okay, hands up in the air. Even you, Marina. Now put your hands just on the top of your chest, just right here, and with your thumbs, you can put them just on your collarbones. And just so your fingertips are touching the top of your chest. Close your eyes. Close your eyes and inhale, exhale. Inhale through your nostrils only. Exhale through your nostrils. Inhale, 1, 2, 3. Exhale, 1, 2, 3. Inhale, nostrils only. Exhale. So you can lower your hands now. So what this is called clavicle breathing, and it's just opening up the bigger pockets of our respiratory lungs. So keeping through breath work. In Ayurveda, we call it prana. Prana in science is called the biofield. And your biofield is this energy, which isn't like an energy you can hold on to, but it's like the power you have within yourself. And prana and breath are totally different, but the more you work on your breath work, the more you work on cultivating your personal, call it chi, call it energy. And it's something for our elders I really want to encourage more because they're susceptible to these diseases. Also, expectorants for your lungs are important too. So things we can get in our community health food stores, such as mullein, beets are great for your heart, lung care. If you're going to be drinking milk, yogurt, if you aren't drinking alcohol, these are all things that affect your respiratory system. So self-care is the most important thing. The quality of digestion is one of the most important things in Ayurveda. If your body isn't cycling through what you've consumed, you're manifesting diseases internally and externally. So if we're stressed and we're eating food, our food will not digest properly. So finding ways to have a good morning routine, evacuation of your bowels, waking up, Before waking up, maybe not looking at our cell phones, but maybe breathing, keeping our eyes closed for a few minutes, doing some anyat bhavna, some pranayama, some breath work, prayer, and then starting the day, cleansing the body, drinking some warm water with lemon, turmeric, ginger, honey, stimulating the digestive fire, preparing the physical body for an evacuation of bowels, and letting in new, beautiful, healthy influences. Starting our day with some exercise, some yoga, being out in nature. I think this is really essential for our elders as well, and all people. One thing I think that's important, if you do have a really busy mind and you just can't keep it that way, spend time with children. Children are a great reflection of the true wisdom keepers as well as our elders. And if you can't do that because of COVID, we all have screens. We can connect with people online. Quiet reflection time, essential. Your food, achar. Your food's an essential thing, and it's going to be more because we're staying at home more, but it's a beautiful part of it. And that's why when I think of breakfast, lunch, dinner, always during the season, during lunchtime around there, you should have your biggest meal of the day. Look at your hands. And if you all look at your hands, how big they are, you can actually see that half of your hand should be actually how big a snack should be for you. And the size of both of your hands, or even one of your hands, is how big one meal should actually be, because that meal is going to be going down into your stomach. And then it's going to get assimilated and digested. So a really big part of Ayurveda, sure, is food, but it's a simple one. But the most important part from an Ayurveda perspective is keeping our minds calm, relaxed, and released. Because if we're stressed out, there's no way that any food or influences are going to help us out. I look at this through hormones. And if we look at men, for instance, we'll wake up in the morning and naturally, and I just want to say, when I say men and women, I do understand that we have people who are non-binary here, people of other genders. Ayurveda is quite it's an ancient system, so the genders are referred to as male and female, but I'm referring to all genders. As within that, when we talk of prana, prana itself actually represents the word Nataraja Shiva, which is, as Marina mentioned, the fire element. It's a Latin cosmic flame that burns within all of us, just as when we do charatka, which can be when you look at a candle and you look at that in the morning or at nighttime and you just gaze at a candle, and by gazing at that candle and breathing, inhaling and exhaling, you breathe in and you visualize that candle in the bottom of your extremities, the top of your stomach, towards your solar plexus, your heart, your throat, your top of your head, your crown, because you're visualizing the latent fire that's within your body. And this is considered what chakras are. So in the West, they call it chakras, but chakras itself is a systematical approach of conduits of energy which exist within us. And just a practice to cultivate and bringing up, just like the breath, which goes up and down, there's this energy that cycles within us. So practices to calm our nervous systems. But when I mention hormones, women compared to men is so different. Men, we have a lot of testosterone, and actually the more men do physical, heavy, impactful exercises, their cortisol actually balances out and their hormones regulate. This also goes into when we talk to families about having children. For women or people who have reproductive systems that are different than men's reproductive organs, with moon cycles, stress, progesterone and cortisol, when these two caring, nurturing elements, which are made up of plasma internally, are constricted due to stress, for example, and living in a Western world in a capitalist structure where it's, like Marina said, the slave masters tell you, you got to go to work. Sorry. It's kind of like someone who might be stressing you with their influences. And if a woman feels that, in my opinion, and their estrogen and progesterone, which are meant to cultivate and harness this, the reproduction system within, gets robbed. So the sexual organs get robbed. Cortisol is increasing, and then there's imbalance within those hormones, and then we can find that the pancreas, the spleen are affected, the liver constricts, your thyroid gland to your thymus, your pineal gland, which are connected, they get constricted because it's small, like a little line, like a little gland in your body. If that gets constricted, then how can your thyroid function properly and send a little bit of water, a little bit of droplets of plasma up to your brain? No, it's going to rob you from your sexual organs. And for women, that's why we see so many health issues have occurred. If it's thyroid issues, hypothyroid issues, hyperthyroid as well. And that's why, end of the day, the one thing I want to suggest is it's too much heat in the internal body. Finding cooling, calming, relaxing foods such as lentils, greens. There's some carnivorous vegetables we should be concerned about, but always looking at what suppresses me from being my best self. And aside from looking at what's stressing me to have this living approach, but what's going to help me engage more with my own Atman, my heart, which can be, long showers, chanting, singing. Look at the young people singing these days on not WhatsApp, Instagram, but TikTok. These are great avenues. But of course, the imbalance happens when you're stressed out and you're looking at something too much or dealing with screens. So end of the day, the endocrine gland affects us through stress. And if you find this happening in a certain area of your life right now, I suggest you do one thing, and that's just take some time, relax, rest better, reach out to people such as me. I'm here to help anybody out if you want. You can reach me on my my social media platforms. I'm more than helpful to help you, but it really comes down to routine, discipline, and balance, and love, and seeking those from communities such as these. So achar, eating timely meals. This helps brings our circadian rhythm also into balance and our hormones. Okay, so rest is one of the most important parts. Sleeping on time. Backward bends are really good too. And if you're really stressed, to do downward bends, that's for releasing your stress. Kriyas, Yoni Mudra. Here's a great one I just want to share. So we were talking about going within, and I think this is a good one. So if you take your fingertips and you put your lovely little fingertips, your pinkies right here, you take your thumbs, you put them right here underneath your nose, you take your middle fingers, you put them right here, right where your where your nose is, and then right where your eyelids are, you put your fingertips like this. And then when you can, you take your thumbs and you put your thumbs in your ears. And then if you stand up, you sit straight with the spine nice and straight, your neck straight, your arms up, and you gently have your fingertips touching these. You breathe, inhale and exhale through your nostrils. So we can try this one time by inhaling, exhaling through your nostrils, keeping the spine straight, inhaling through your nostrils, exhaling through your nostrils. One more time, inhale, 1, 2, 3, exhale, 1, 2, 3. Stay here with your hands and just breathe naturally at your own rhythm of breath for a few seconds. And slowly keep your eyes closed. Take your hands in your palms, rub your palms, keeping your eyes closed, rubbing them, making some nice hot heat like a fire. Cup your eyes, cupping your eyes. You can feel the heat of your eyeballs in your hands, and slowly release your hands down to the ground. So this is a practice, it's a kriya, it's a self-care practice, but what you're doing basically when you do this kriya is you're using the 5 senses, touch, taste, see, hear, and feel. and you're actually withdrawing all your senses. So when you're withdrawing all your senses, you're going within yourself. Don't do it if you're suffering from a high amount of depression. Because remember, in Ayurveda or yoga, when someone's depressed, has psychological disorders, trauma, we don't have them go within themselves. We have them keep themselves doing practice and staying in nature, staying busy, doing positive things, because their mind needs to stay active. And that's afterwards you can go within. So in our allopathic medications, Western and pharmaceutical medications, what do we do with ADHD, stress, anxiety? We put this. We make it dark. We sedate the person. So what do you do when you sedate a child? They're not able to truly be themselves. What do you do when you sedate a householder, an elder? We're trying to awaken the mind, and this is a very important step. And that's why I just want to say, you know, it's corny, but stay in the light in a way, but it's very helpful. So these are some things I thought that would be helpful for really finding an approach from an Ayurvedic approach. I could have made this more of a workshop, but I want this to be really flexible. And does anybody have any questions? I'm sorry, I'm talking way too much. Does anybody have any questions about their health, diet, from an Ayurveda perspective? Please let me know. Go for it, yeah.
Hi, Sachin. Good to see you.
Hi, Linda. I think you gotta unmute yourself. Can't hear you.
Oh,
I
still?
could hear her. I can hear you, Linda.
Can you hear me now?
I don't think I can hear you.
But I can. And other people hear Linda? Okay, we got a
Hi,
Hello,
Linda, can
check,
you hear me?
check. I can hear you. Can you hear me? Check.
Sorry, I can hear you now. Pardon me. Sorry about that.
You're good, you're good.
No problem. No problem. First of all, I want to say, yes, you know, you've been rattling off such amazing, applicable pieces of information, and it's a lot, but it's like, I appreciate how everything's connected, you know, like to our environment now, to the daily, you know, these are things you can do moment to moment. So I really appreciate that you're including so many things in this short time. My first question was when you brought up cooling, calming. Sometimes I find myself challenged in the sense of like, when you know, I try to listen to my body in terms of like, okay, now it's winter here, and I do crave, you know, soups and heat. But sometimes I know with my kind of energy, whether it's stress or trauma or, you know, whatever I'm kind of healing for myself, that I need cooling things. One of my acupuncturists told me a few years ago, you know, be cool like a cucumber, whether it's my tone or my emotionality, or what I eat, that, you know, think cool like a cucumber. So sometimes I get confused, like, is it okay to do both at the same time? Like if I eat a leafy green or something, but I'm also craving a hot soup, like what's happening in the body if I'm doing both, I guess is my question.
Okay, Linda, you're doing everything perfect. And when you're saying that I'm having a fiery, okay, it's like, this is what I suggest. If you're gonna have like a beautiful nourishing bowl of its lentils, potato, you've made some beautiful, exquisite, nourishing food for yourself, do that, make that. But remember, add an oil too that's healthy, such as ghee, coconut oil, some cooling spices such as cumin seeds, cilantro, coconut milk. But then take your salad, put your salad first thing in your bowl or your plate, and then add your hot food on top of it. And I say that because you're lightly steaming your vegetables. Because if you take raw vegetables and you consume that in a colder environment, even though it's nice and hot in your home, your metabolic rate will have a hard time digesting that, because the external environment where you're located is it's not so warm, let's say, like India or Hawaii. So that's all you need to do. And that way you'll get the benefits of your beautiful greens that you want to have. You'll notice that people who eat raw vegan, raw foods, they actually get very depleted in their bones, their teeth, their skin, because their agni, their digestion is not able to metabolize so much raw food. It becomes acidic. So that's what I'd suggest doing. Simple things.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I'm
We'll
looking
definitely-
forward to doing that.
We'll definitely do like a workshop, and I can share a bunch of slides and stuff with you for sure.
Fantastic. Do we have, I think this is, I mean, if you want to continue on, Sachin, but I have a feeling there are other, because you did put out a lot of information. We're okay, by the way, for time, as long as you are. But I have a feeling there are some other people who might have some questions or feedback. We do have other practitioners as well on the in the circle. So is there anything else? Yeah?
I'm
Okay,
good. If
so
anyone has questions, holler. If not,
yeah. I think that's great. It's amazing information, by the way. So we are interactive here. It's a circle. So please speak up if you care to. I'd love to hear some other voices.
So, okay, now it's me again. Thank you very much, Sachin. Very nice and interesting. I'm wondering, how long are you living with the Ayurvedic way of life? And do you offer some workshops as well? Because I just started to do it by myself, not for such a long time, but I'm at the beginning of it, and I would love to bring it into my life, and I would love to learn from somebody who is, yes, in it already, and not just to learn from myself and read from the books, because I think sometimes you need to be careful what kind of books you are reading and from which persons you are getting to get the knowledge, because yeah, it's confusing. Some people, they are seeming maybe they mean that they know these things, or they are pretending to know the things, and then you get the wrong knowledge of it. And I don't want to get wrong knowledge as well as from not the right books. So yes, I'm wondering if you are offering some workshops as well.
yes, I do, Rashida. I did send you some information on the chat line. I believe Salim did too. I work as an Ayurvedic practitioner, and I do offer workshops, online virtual classes now. And I could definitely help you with what you're looking for and some resources too. No problems.
Nice, that's wonderful. Thank you. Nice.
Yeah, and that's also one of the functions of this, is to connect people. You know, you're drawn to this workshop, then there's the Sangha, there's a reason, and we love to have the connections kind of come out of it. So, and Rashid, it's great that you've come in like just since yesterday and making connections with people in both experiences. That's the, you know, one of the goals for sure.
Yeah, thank you. I'm super happy that I am able to be in these circles, because, wow, I had some wishes for getting some information, but it's so much more, and I'm so overwhelmed, and I'm so thankful, because now I got the feeling, yes, I'm on the right path, and I need to follow it. And so nice to have to know now this great souls like you or Sachin, and also Marina and your family yesterday, and also Francisco. I want to give you also a big thanks, because without you it would not be possible for me to be here, because I had so much struggle to register. So thank you so much. I'm very happy and grateful for that. Thank you.
I had, oh, sorry, my video's having some trouble this morning. I have a really old computer. But my name is Yui. I sort of dropped in a little bit while Marina was speaking, and I'm not sure if Marina's still there, but thank you so much for coming through, Marina. That was so insightful, and I have so many thoughts and questions that I don't think I can ask them all or speak them all or take up that space in the circle, but thank you to Sachin too. I had a sort of quick question because I've had some friends who've introduced me to different breathing exercises and been taking various meditation breathing courses. And one of them is Kundalini breathing. And I've heard like a number of things about it. For one thing, it seems to be very empowering and helps people clarify their energies in various ways. But I've also heard the opposite, that actually if someone is new to breathing, or if someone doesn't have it seems that there are stages that one goes through, like you start here and then you build up to Kundalini. So I just wondered if you could clarify that a little bit, or maybe talk about, would you suggest that someone who's new to a yoga practice or new to meditation or new to breathing, would you recommend that they jump into Kundalini first? Or yeah, if you could maybe just, since you introduced some breathing exercises, I thought you might know.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Yui. Okay, well, what I do want to say about that is Kundalini yoga is probably one of the most powerful forms of yoga in a way, because it like automatically gets you there. You could compare it to if you're charging your batteries on your car and you need a jump start, it just kind of it jump starts you, and then your car is started. But what's the problem when the car is driven for a while? It's sitting there, it's not starting, it's idle. It might turn on a little bit, so you're upping the energy, but the energy kind of comes down. So I really feel that Kundalini yoga is taken a really big presence in the Western world because it's so powerful. And if we look at the mind, which is quite busy, it diminishes that. I think it's a great exercise, a great practice. Because so the basis of Kundalini yoga is where you're looking at where your hip is, your extremities, your reproductive system. In Kundalini yoga, they consider that to be where the coil of the serpent is. So you'll see even like this picture here, if you can see this, it looks like a skull, and there's like a body and a snake kind of going up, and there's two little things here. That's looking at, so the Kundalini rises up your spinal cord, which is this energy, this subtle energy, and those go up, of course, your chakras. Your Kundalini is said to be 2.5 inches. And when it rises up, you're breathing with your nostrils, because that's the main thing you're doing. And you're working with your right and your left. Your left is cold and your right is heat. Oh, sorry, right is cold, left is heat. Your right is, this is your idap, your pingila nadi, and your ira nadi, which is on your left side. And this also represents sun and moon. So there's these 3 nadis that you work with in Kundalini yoga, which is your pingala, your ira, and your shashuma. There are hundreds, tens of thousands, or 72,000 nadis in your body, but these are only 3, which are these energy channels, just kind of like channels when you're checking out YouTube and Netflix, you go to a certain channel, but these channels are in your body. In yoga, in Hatha yoga, which is Hatha yoga, you're balancing these solar and lunar energies in your body and mind, but you're taking more of a gentle, calm approach, which is considered the word sattvic, which is like it's love. It's like nature. It's something that's gentle, calming, relaxing. Kundalini yoga definitely helps, strengthens an individual's roots. The only thing I have to say about Kundalini yoga, if you're going to practice, make sure you're going in and you're working with a good teacher, and you're very open and honest about what you might be going through from emotional, physical, trauma level. You want, I won't even call it a teacher, I'll call them a practitioner, because a practitioner is what we do call ourselves. We're learning all the time. We are teachers, but we are not. We're students of life. And it's a big rule that if you're going to take part in Kundalini Yoga, do enjoy. The reason why Kundalini Yoga is so powerful and helpful is because of how it brings up this energy in your body and it helps you focus and stay maintained. So I hope that answers your question. I have lots of other things I can diverge off with because I have quite an airy element in me, but I don't want to. Does that help, Yui?
Yeah, I guess it's like you're saying, it's important to, because when you say like you have to sort of like inform your practitioner, like some of the things you're going through, is that because like it might, like would the exercises like incite something negative?
Well, yeah, I think that the thing that I've come across in the past teaching, even with Kundalini yoga studios like in Los Angeles, like Venice Beach. For example, I taught a class in Venice Beach, an Ayurveda cooking class on spices and things. But there was a guy who's throwing bricks at the window trying to break it. And I was like, what's going on here? So I went outside and I talked to him and he just kind of walked off, and it was really interesting. And I found out later that he had actually broken some of their windows before, but he was going to Kundalini yoga prior. But this young man had a lot of psychological disorders, was on medication. And the problem is, just like if you have a lot of depression, etc., and you, like we did Yoni Mudra, and if you're letting all your senses are your emotions, your senses are your experiences, your microprocessor, your brain, it's going within. It doesn't have a chance to process itself outwardly. It's not getting the physical, the moral, the mental strength. It's not understanding the qualities of its mind, of its tapas. There can be a little bit of disimbalancing. And this was an example of, in Ayurveda, it's a Kundalini disorder that happens. So yes, I think it's very essential for people to take caution in practice when doing anything. Hey, if you drink right now a cup of whiskey, is that okay? Like, is that going to have an effect on you? Yeah, it's going to burn your internal body. It's going to heat up your mind. It's going to withdraw your senses. So that's why I just say, if you're doing yoga practices, align with the right teacher. Salim teaches yoga classes online, and get the right, it should be a safe space where there can be calmness and vulnerability can occur. And for that reason, I just want to suggest having the right teacher and practitioner to guide you is the most important. And don't be afraid to ask that, hey, I have some of these things, will I be okay? Because then a teacher can say, okay, you're not going to do this. You're going to do this today. And yoga itself is really just a practice to help keep our minds balanced. And it's probably one of the best things in the present time to have. So I hope that helps a little bit. Does that help you? You can let me clarify if I need to more, please.
Oh, no, I think that definitely helps. And I like the analogy of the whiskey. It kind of like, it's true, we're breathing something into our body and it's going down our throats, into our systems, into our stomachs, and into our lungs. It's just because it's not a liquid doesn't mean it doesn't have an effect. So yeah, that really helps. Thanks, Sachin.
I'd like to add to what Sachin was saying as well, is that my feeling, like 100% to what you said, Sachin. And I think that trusting your intuition is so important in general. And particularly when it comes to, studying with someone or connecting with the teacher. So when something feels right, when something doesn't feel right to you. And what feels right to you isn't what's necessarily going to feel right to someone else as well. So I just want to put that forward too, because that's really been so important in my life. And I study a couple different art forms, and I think this idea of really listening to the inner voice around these things is super important, because that, at the end of the day, it's you within yoga practice, it's you who's healing yourself. Someone may facilitate or help help kind of guide you through that process, but it's really you doing the work at the end of the day, even though it may not seem like that, even though there can be the perception of kind of a teacher-student dynamic. Really, it's you who's doing the work. And your intuition is so important and so powerful too. So I just wanted to put that forward adding on to what you were saying, Sachin.
Yeah, I really love that. And I think that's something, even Sachin, when you were saying like they're a practitioner, and it's like sometimes there's this hierarchy that can happen with the language of like teacher and you get talked at, sort of something Marina was also saying. And I really like that idea of like the exchange and how we're all students and teachers simultaneously, but at the end of the day, it's you doing the work. And I think that's really radical actually, and really awesome. Thanks for that.
Mm-hmm.
You're welcome. I just want to say one more thing on that. Sometimes it's hard for people in an exclusive or an inclusive space to actually be vulnerable and say how they feel. And that's why I feel that it's really important in spaces or even online, if people are directing people and talking to them, it's hard for a lot of people, even young people especially, to speak up and say what they're feeling. So I feel for a teacher, it's really important to maybe have debriefing dialogue with each student separately, because then someone can really open up like, hey, yeah, this is actually going on with me. This is how I'm feeling. Because it's hard, like when you open up all these windows and you're seeing people, to just want to be like, hey, this is what's going on with me. So I just want to say that's one really important thing I feel.
Fantastic. We can keep flowing if there are any more. I really like this, people, directing any specific questions. Tara, did you have anything? I'm reaching out to you. Tara's a friend of mine who's a TCM acupuncturist. And she's also part of the Synergy community. Calling you out, madame. What did you think? What were your impressions? Let me ask that.
Okay, first of all, amazing, Sachin. Thank you. It was so interesting and so informative. And I was loving the crossovers, both with Marina and her prayer, before we get to you, Sachin. But, she said this universal prayer, and she was talking about communities and how you're a part of community. And it got me to thinking, this honoring of the grandmothers and grandfathers. And we have a similar prayer that we do in mosque, called a Rouhani prayer. And it's one of the I don't pray in the traditional sense of, going to mosque, but I do say my Rouhani prayer and think about honoring the elders and how they influence me in terms of protecting and teaching and wisdom. And so that really resonated with me, first of all, because I was like, gosh, and I remember instinctively as she was praying, I was going like this, which is something I do in mosque, and it just came so naturally. But to me, that was about crossing so many different things. It's about universal community. It's not about divisiveness. It's about crossing all these differences and coming to the universal truth of humanity. So I thought that was amazing. And then when you were talking how you were talking to Linda about how to balance the yin and yang, I would call it yin and yang, the food. Again, there was so many crossovers with what you were talking about from an Ayurvedic perspective to the perspective that I look at from the TCM paradigm. And one of the things that really struck me is how you were talking about having the salad. And I talk about cold food a lot as well. I nag everyone about, raw foods and all of that. But, I think for me anyway, and maybe you can talk more about this, Sachin, and how the crossover comes. But what I'm thinking about is if we say hot and cold food, or for me, I would say yin and yang, and then we say animal products are yang, okay? And within yang, it goes on ad infinitum. So you can have, say, fish, which is still yang because it's an animal product. You've taken a life to eat that fish. But it's more yin than, say, duck or cow, or, so even within the qualities of foods, and you can go the opposite end of the spectrum with the yin foods. So you may have a green leafy vegetable, which is very yin, or you might have a root vegetable, which is yin, but then, is it complex carbohydrate and breaks in. So you have those spectrums of breakdown. So even if you're eating a soup, let's say you make a soup of spinach, then that would be cooling, even though it's a warm food. So it goes into methodology of cooking, as well as you know, what you're cooking as well. And I found that very interesting. So like cooking the salad, but even using, say, cooling foods and cooking them in a warming way, or using warm yang foods and cooking them in a more cooling way. So instead of roasting, then you may be stewing, which makes it imbues qualities of liquid, of coolness, of, you know, I find that very interesting. And then obviously the spices, but I was interested to hear if there's similar crossovers in Ayurveda in terms of both qualities of food and preparation. And
Kara, thank you so much. I agreed completely. Ayurveda and traditional Chinese medicine have so many crossovers. When I think of Dr. Vasant Lad and Anisha Durve, they created a book called Marma Points of Ayurveda. And Marma Points are like in Chinese medicine, when we look at all the channels of the body, and Marma Points are actually quite similar because they cross over so well. It's a great book. I think you like to see the two connections with them. Yes, Ayurveda and traditional Chinese medicine are completely congruent and work together. There's so many crossovers. They're just partners geographically. India's here, China's here. There's only a border that stops people from crossing over. Not a Bodhidharma, like over 10,000 years ago on the Silk Route, took scriptures from Kalari ashrams to China. And a lot of Chinese martial arts were actually derived from Indian martial arts called Kalari Payatu. But within that, the practice of Siddhi medicine, which is now Ayurveda after times happened, a lot of those practices to do with healing, herbs, medicine were cross-integrated. And of course, over time, they just developed for those places. So I think that's such a cool area. And what I've been taught from my teachers, teachers of TCM as well. And you're right. I think the beauty of all this is, like you said about Marina's prayer too, that it's all universal and everything is connected. We're not divided. We might be divided because of borders and rules, but everything reconnects together. So I think there's a beautiful unity to that, as long as we can keep ourselves open and not like, this is my Ayurveda or this is you and you. They're all interconnected and they're all here to help us out here, all as children. So I hope that helps out. And with the food, definitely. So many crossovers with food. I think Chinese medicine goes further into specific root causes. If it's spleen deficiencies, your nails, tongue, eyes, skin, like the whole variety of it. So I hope that helps and I answered the question.
yeah, it does. It's super interesting. But you know what I also wanted to find out is, for me, I would advise on how you cook food as well as which food you eat, and look at the qualities of both how you cook it and the quality of the food itself, the intrinsic essence of the food, let's say. So if you were going back to say Linda's, you know, what Linda was asking, would you suggest cooking the same food she's eating in a different way, for example, instead of adding things, or, you know, or would you suggest that actually she has to take out everything she's eating, or modify it, or, you know what I mean? Or
Oh yeah, completely. So I work as an Ayurvedic cooking teacher. So this is what I do. So what I'd suggest to Linda, like, hey Linda, like, what are you eating right now, for example? So Linda might say, I'm like potatoes and I'm just like cooking it and then I'll eat them. I'd be like, okay, wait, hold on here. Let's maybe look at how are you roasting your spices first? Because we have to create a form of heat. And that's almost like an alchemy. It's like layering your spice. So cooking with like a healthy oil at a certain temperature. For example, if you cook cumin seeds at 250 degrees, when that's consumed into your system with your food, it will stimulate, it stimulates an enzyme in your liver. So it's supportive, it's good for digestion, and it's good for decreasing heat. Hence, it's still a hot element, but you're taking in with food. So the approach I like to give to clients, if they're cooking foods, the best practitioner, the best therapist, the best doctor is the one who can really cook for themselves, because that's really where it starts. If you don't know how to prepare, so that's really where I start first. And definitely, I would definitely, like, for example, I have farmers who are ranchers, and they have high BPs, very hard digestion issues, coronary heart disease. We had them cooking their foods with certain spices, different oils, eating at different times. And those things are really helpful. Even like, for example, eating khichdi, which is a cleansing dish of rices and split mung beans, which is like a whole protein and carbohydrate dish. It was all about, if you're going to eat that during the summertime, maybe add some coconut milk to it, because it has a cooling effect to the body too. So 100%, that's how it works. And how really one gains and understands through the right direction how to eat for themselves, and to eat for seasons as well. So if you're eating during fall, winter, spring, summer, every individual has different choices and different kinds of foods, different habits, different kinds of foods that they should be eating. And then that goes into the tastes as well of our food. So sweet, sour, pungent, astringent, salty. I'll always tell my clients, if you're going to cook your food, add salt last to any dish, because it helps with absorption of minerals, but it also decreases the amount of sodium that you're incorporating into it. But then you're also working on your tastes. You're working on the rasas of what you're actually eating, and your senses are actually beginning to get stimulated. As we know, the tongue itself, it has the respiratory system on it, the liver, our organs. And I really feel that these need to be educated more to the masses, so people can really understand, why is it that food affects me like this and how it works better. Does that help out more? How about for yourself? Do you eat through seasons? Do you change?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's very much about eating according to season. It's about, I think, you can take it like you. I think nutrition is fundamentally, in TCM, we say first you start with food. Yeah. And then you say, okay, if food doesn't work, then you look at other aspects of lifestyle, and then medicine and acupuncture and herbs and everything else is the last resort. It begins with what you put into your body. And if you look at it from that perspective, then you can take it not just in terms of eating seasonally, although that's part of it, but also locally. If you're eating, so they're saying, okay, maybe not so much fruit in winter, or not so many cold vegetables. But realistically, in Canada in winter, are you going to be naturally getting salad or grapefruit? You're not. So it goes beyond just eating seasonally, but also eating what is available at the time in your place in nature, because that will automatically give you the foods you need at that particular time of, so eating locally as well. And
I agree with you completely. I think that we're a big in snacking based society, and the one things that even I've had to tell myself about is how processed chips, food, snacks, they're dead food and they're dense food, so they act as poison to your body actually when they do get digested. And I think that's a really important part of it. And definitely eating locally, agreed. Even in the colder climates here, we're in Calgary, Alberta, nothing grows right now, everything's dead outside, but we have the accessibility to fresh garlic, sweet yams, onions, indoor growings happening of herbs, rosemary, thyme, winter squashes. And these all are warming and nourishing for our bodies. They are heavier, but you require that in this kind of environment for your body, since it needs to have more heat and stay stoked. So I agree with you completely, and with everyone building their own relationship to food.
Hi everyone. Hi again. I so appreciate you bringing these points up, Tara and Sachin, because you mentioned blood pressure, and so it sparked this thought in my mind about something specific to the Filipino culture, that there's a saying that a lot of our parents' generation would say, and it's, I have high blood. And they're just, it's almost like this accepted thing, like I have high blood means oh, you're stressing me out, or I'm stressed, or you know, like it's almost like something that, you know, and it's just really my definition of it, that they can't, that, oh, it's, you know, I can't control it. That's what happens, you know, that's what happens to you when you get older. You get high blood, and so it's become so common in our language that we almost don't take ownership of it anymore. And I would say that there's a lot of reliance on like Western medicine to be like, okay, give me that pill. And if, you know, I've tried everything else, I need the pill. You know, maybe the pill's not working. I wash my hands of the situation. I have high blood, you know? And so my question is, you know, when you're speaking of food and you were talking about the farmers and the ranchers, what is something that, you know, that might help in terms of like Ayurvedic cooking? And you know, I know that you're not Filipino, but I feel like it's surrounded by so much like language and mentality and diet, that I feel like there's got to be a way to like you said, have that do the self-reflection, and also like that mindfulness, so that, you know, we can start to introduce something that might change that cultural trajectory of like labeling ourselves of like having high blood. If that makes any sense.
Tara, you want to go first? Okay, Tara, yeah, you want to take this? Yeah. I got something to say, but I would like you to go first.
I think you should go first. I'm interested to hear.
Okay. Well, I just want to say one thing. I think the colonial influence has had a huge impact on the foods we eat, and how we're already even in modern day being impacted by it. So diabetes, cardiac hypertension, and if we look at, these are three things that are, it's going to double by 30 million in 2023 in India alone. And the biggest part about it is the food people are eating. I bought my friend some Filipino food, and it was some chips, and it was just all sugar and fried. And when I went to the Filipino grocery store, I looked around, and all I could see were things that were prepackaged, preserved, a lot of meat, and a lot of sugar, and a lot of gluten. And it made me think, these are people from an island. They're not people from like a industry. So I think the colonial influence is one place you have to look at first. I also think in Ayurveda too, an individual to take a good look at, what's your health history? What's the health history of your mother, of your father? What degenerative diseases have they had? And then go back, your grandfathers, your grandmothers, your uncles, your aunties, your brother, your sister, because we all have a DNA code, and we can really unravel some ideas, if that's mental diseases, internal physical diseases, cancer, which you see on the rise. And then from those things, we can get an idea of, okay, if my dad had pancreatic cancer or alcoholism or depression, and I'm seeing some of these things slightly come up in me or not, maybe I should look at preventative measures for the future, so I don't end up inheriting those qualities. And that's about breaking those qualities. So that's one place I really like to step and look at, most definitely. You look at indigenous communities like Marina, or even like in India, or even Philippines, there's such a high amount of cardiac problems, diabetes, because people aren't used to eating large diets, which are so heavy in over processed industrial commercial cooked meats, white sugar, unprocessed gluten. There's nothing wrong with gluten as long as gluten's actually been fermented properly. So I think it's about really, one part is sure making your food at home first, but also lifestyle is a big one too. Tara, you want to take it from here?
I was going to say something very similar. Actually, I was actually thinking about epigenetics, actually, and I find that very, very interesting, because epigenetics is the science of which genes are switched on. So as a culture, you know, you said it's the Filipino community. So the first thing that I would think of there is this is a culturally genetic issue, first of all. Yeah. So these particular group of people are more prone to high blood. Yeah. But epigenetics is the study of which genes are switched on and not. So you may have the genes, or your parents may have the genes for a particular disease like hypertension. It's there, it's within you, it's intrinsic. But whether that gene gets triggered, whether that switches on and leads into, you know, sort of diseases like hypertension or diabetes will depend on lifestyle. So if you are eating food, I mean, there was a really interesting study which I may have shared with some people here because it's one of my favorite studies, but they did this study on rats, and I found it absolutely fascinating, because if the mother rats were fed one type of food, their babies were born with curly tails. And if they were fed another type of food, they were born with white coats. Both of those genes are present there. The genes for curly tails are there. The genes for white coats are there. But what that genetic picture is expressed is determined by what you put in. So if you are putting foods that automatically trigger those genetic predispositions to hypertension, for example, then of course that will manifest as hypertension. But if you are eating a more natural diet, which ensures that those genes are not triggered, that genetic picture is not switched on, then that is immediately a way of, you know, I wouldn't say eliminating, but at least negating or lowering what's all there. You know, it's about using the information we have. We know as a group of people we are prone to this. How do we bring about the lower likelihood of that particular manifestation of our genetic makeup? Yeah. So.
Yeah, thank you. I'm definitely gonna look into that idea of epigenetics. That's really fascinating, Tara. Thank you. And definitely to, you know, being island people, I think, you know, sometimes I get kind of nostalgic, I guess, you know, because I miss the island, I miss the fresh fruit and, you know, the ocean water, you know. So I think I need to put more effort and intention into feeding. What does that look like? What do I need to do to kind of feed that desire, that need, you know, being out here in Calgary and in Canada. So I'm definitely going to do a lot more research. Thank you.
That's great. That's amazing information. Really great. I love that the two of you are sharing, and so much complementary just information. You know, amazing information. I think we're going to wrap it up soon. Happy to take one or two more feedback or questions or thoughts, though, because we're at the 2-hour mark, and that's fine. It's no problem. This was when we first started doing sanghas. This was the norm. We'd go like 2.5 hours. So it's great. But we will wrap it up soon. So, but I would like to, if there's anything else that's important. Yeah, Rashida, feel free.
I just have one more question. First of all, thank you, Tara and Sachin. It was very, very interesting and super nice that both of you are like collaborating in some way. It's very nice. And I have just one question because I'm about Marina. Is there also some opportunity to get in touch with her? Because I'm wondering, as she knows so many things and she what she was talking about reminded me of kind of ceremonies. So I'm wondering if she does ceremonies, but she also said that she is conscious about with which people she wants to get in touch with. So I don't know if this question is too close. I don't know. I just wondering if there's any possibility for some gatherings with her, because that would be amazing. She has such a great knowledge, and I think she really knows ways for healing the soul deeper. Yeah.
So Rashida, if you go in the chat, thank you, Marina, first off. She just posted her email for you.
Oh,
So
nice.
that's a yes to, she's welcoming you to reach out.
Thank you very much, Marina. I will definitely write to you. Thank you.
Yeah, just be sure to copy that. And if you ever had any issues, then you can always reach out to me. We can get it. But you've got her email now. Thank you, Marina.
So I
And I just want to say, like, thank you, Marina, because Rashida, one thing, the Indigenous community in Canada is they're what I've realized, like, it's such an honor and a privilege to have Marina part of this, because elders usually don't extend a lot of their time to outsiders, and it's for safety reasons of a lot of the trauma that they've endured through hundreds and hundreds of years. So I just feel like this is awesome having Marina open to talking with everybody, and it's, yeah, soak it in. It's awesome.
Yeah, wonderful, wonderful. Okay, anything else that needs to be expressed by the community before we wrap it up?
As always, thank you, Salim. Thank you, Francisco, for hosting and organizing. Yeah. Thank you, everyone, for sharing and, for a very, very interesting talk. I really enjoy. I've been waiting for this one for a while.
Yes. Tara's out here in Nairobi, Kenya. I'm in Kenya, so she's a friend, and we've, yeah. And so I knew that there'd be an interesting dialogue between you two. So thank you, Tara, for stepping in and sharing some of your perspective. Because like I said, it's a circle at the end of the day, and that's the ultimate kind of space that we want to hold here. With that, I'm going to end our recording. We've got a juicy one here today. This is a really amazing one to start the year off with in terms of the Sanghas. Thank you so much, Linda Key, for connecting us, Synergy, with Sachin. Amazing, amazing, amazing. All right, so I'm going to stop the recording, and then